Hi everybody, it's Tatiana, and this is The Barnes Horseman by Paulina Simons. I'm not going to really go into the synopsis of this story. I'm going to tell you why I wanted to read it. For those of you who have heard me say before, I do have I think healthy obsession with the Romanov dynasty leading up to the Bolshevik Revolution, as well as some of the history of the Romanov family. However, I have not read anything in Russia beyond, stationed in Russia or set in Russia, beyond that time frame. And I've also said before that I have a mild obsession with books written in World War II, not set in the U.S. This is a story that's set in Russia during World War II. And so I wanted to read it because it's a perspective that I've never read before, that I didn't have. And so that intrigued me. So that's one reason why I wanted to read it. The other reason why I wanted to read it is because the main character's name is Tatiana, and I'm that self-centered. Even though I know in Russian it's pronounced Tatiana, it's still spelled like my name is spelled. So, yeah. The story starts in the summer of 1941, mere days or a day or the day that Germany invades Leningrad, Russia, and goes from there with the invasion of Leningrad and the effect that it has on the city as well as its residents, particularly Tatiana and her sister Daria and her brother. This is supposed to be a love story. This is not the kind of love story on any level that I don't think it should be tagged a love story. I think it should be tagged like a war story, maybe because that was more interesting to me about it, or that I am not talking well, but I'm going to keep going. Tatiana was really like the thorn in everyone's side, yet the person that everyone loved to shit on. Nobody gave a fuck about her. She was the youngest of the family, and nobody had any faith in her ability to perform the simplest of tasks, and everything when they talked to her, it was to belittle her, to treat her as she's this child. And in the story, at the start of the story, she's turning 17. So yes, she's still a teenager, but 17 or 16 in 1942 is not the same as, 1941 is not the same as 16 now, because some 16-year-olds now don't know their ass from their face. But that was not the life that would have been lived in 1941. Particularly in the Soviet Union, where, winter is harsh as hell and there's a low life expectancy. But that's how they treated her. They treated her like crap. Like, she could not be trusted to do the simplest of tasks, and because of that, they didn't trust her to do that until Russia was invaded by Germany, and they had no choice. And so that's kind of how the story starts off. It starts off with her being given this one responsibility that seems so simple, yet no one believes that she could be able to do it, and it's her figuring out how to do it, screwing up along the way, and then accomplishing it. And as she works to accomplish this task, that's when she meets Alexander, and their love story begins. And I'm not a fan of their love story. I'm not a fan of Alexander. Alexander is complex. He has a history that is exceptionally dangerous, for not just for him, but those who would develop a relationship with him, particularly living in the Soviet Union under Stalin, where everybody, like, if you got captured while you were fighting, you were considered a traitor. And if they didn't kill you in Germany or in Finland and they sent you back home, you would be killed when you got home any fucking way. So to be in that kind of country and to live that kind of life with the danger that he has every day, he had to do some things to protect himself. And he does them, or he's done them up to the point where he meets Tatiana in a devil-may-care kind of way. Whoever falls, falls, as long as he's protecting himself. He has a goal in mind, and then he meets Tatiana, and those goals change. I'm not a fan of Alexander, and I'm not actually unapproving of Alexander and Tatiana beyond all of the obstacles that come into play. There are things that he does for her as their relationship develops, that while I don't like the development of the relationship, I like his place in her life because he stands up for her in a way that no one else will. Outside of that, I wasn't a fan. I really didn't care. This book is like heavy and my arm is sore. I'm going to put it down because I've been crocheting like crazy. The ambiance and setting of Russia during this time frame is awesome. Like, I want to do more research into some of the things that took place during this, I think it's like a 2-year period that this war directly affecting Leningrad, Russia, took place, to see if some of the things that are mentioned in some of the battles and the way that some of these things went in the story are actually line up to the actual historical events. I found myself really intrigued by the actual battles that took place during this story and the characters who persevered, who continually come back home when it seems like they shouldn't, because things have been just that difficult and that harrowing on the front line. The stories of this actual story of what's taking place during the war and how it's affecting not just the soldiers on the front or the soldiers in the barracks, but how it's affecting Tatiana and her family and what she has to go through, as well as the other residents in Leningrad when it comes down to things to food being rationed, to having to get up at the butt crack of dawn when it's still dark outside and it's freezing cold outside, and the clothes that you have are inadequate. The coat that you have is inadequate. The boots you're wearing, the snow seeps in through it, and as you're walking to the store to pick up your rations, not just for you, but you have the ration cards for everybody who's living in your communal apartment. That was another thing that I really liked, the discussion and the layout of the communal apartment and how that was described. And as they go to get the rations, how desperate people were, not just to get these rations, but to get somebody else's rations if they could. How as the war progressed and there were times when the rations would wax and wane and there would be more or there would be less, and the reason why there would be less is because 500,000 people being killed, but you're not thinking about the fact that 500,000 people have been killed. You're just thinking about the fact I get to get more food. And you're passing, as you're walking down the streets, and there's snowbanks that are almost as tall as you are as you're walking down the street, and you're seeing people who just have killed over as they're walking from point A to point B, and they just couldn't go any further, and they just literally dropped dead in the street. That atmospheric setting was everything as I was reading this book. If you can't tell, I was super excited, a little bit more excited than I should be over a topic that's so morbid, but I was super excited. And the frigidity, is that a word, of winter, as we're losing daylight savings time, and it becomes like it looks like 9 o'clock at night at 4:30 in the evening, and it's getting colder and colder as time goes by. I'm so excited. That was everything. Those are the things about the book that I really, really enjoyed and were really good. It just was not what I want to constitute and think about as a love story. I don't typically give, or I try to stay away from giving half stars to books, because I like the cut dry. It either is or it isn't. But there's so much about the war aspect of this and the effect on Russia and the citizens of Russia and Alexander's backstory that really got me. And as much as I didn't like the love story and I didn't like the way that her family treated her, what I loved about it was the war aspect and the effect that it had on Russia. And because of that, I could not just give this book 3 stars. I had to give it 3.5. I couldn't give it 4 because there were 2 things that I didn't like. But the love aspect of it, I'm kind of split in half because part of it I liked, part of it I didn't like. So this is the first book in a trilogy. I am undecided as to whether or not I will continue with the trilogy, and that is because I am not as intrigued and I don't give enough shits about their love story to continue reading the trilogy if it's just about that. I'm not saying I definitely won't read it, but it's not something that is at the forefront of my mind or the top of my TBR list to accomplish. That is my long and rambly, all extra excited review of The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons. If you would like to discuss this, you can, talk to me in the comments below. If you like this video, thank you. Hit the thumbs up button, and if you want to see more from me, subscribe so that you can see the other videos that I upload. I don't know where I was going with that statement. I'm rambling. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a good weekend, whenever you see this video. Peace out.